If you ever wondered how growing for yield compares to growing for quality, stick around because we're going to compare the key differences. But before we do, today's video is brought to you by Real Grow Lab. If you want to connect with the best growers from all over the world, get tips and tricks on how to grow the dankest plants possible, and not have to worry about the censorship we get from YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, go check out realgrowlab.com. Get all kinds of great Grow Talk Q&A, plus see all the stuff YouTube won't let me show you in these videos. Sign up and join our growing community over at realgrowlab.com. Or download the app at the Apple or Android App Store. Now let's get back to today's video. Come on, I see you ready to grow some giant buds that are great, big, and frosty. Can you have them both?
Maybe. I was actually about to ask you the same thing. I know that there are distinct ways to grow depending on what your desired outcome is, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say you can have them both, but yeah, it depends what you're growing for, I would say. There's different strategies for whether you're going to grow straight up to maximize yield or whether you're really growing for quality. There's a couple different things that I would do.
Okay, so who is growing straight up for maximum yield?
Folks that are still getting maximum price for it, I don't know. I would say free market growers, people that are just selling bulk. I mean, dispensaries, actually. I don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, there's a whole group of them called dispensaries.
When we were out at the last Oklahoma Cowboy Cup, I met a lot of outdoor growers that were growing specifically for extracts.
Yes.
And it seemed like that was the key thing for them. They weren't quite as worried about his quality as much as they were about bulk.
Exactly. Because there's a bunch of tricks you can do with that as well. So they're just looking to get as much material as possible, as much surface area, trichomes, and then if they don't look so good or if they don't smell so good, there's all sorts of tricks they can do in that extract business.
Gotcha. So black gray market growers still want bulk. Dispensaries still want bulk.
Yeah, anybody that's selling on weight, I would think it would make sense, would want bulk. When you come to a more sophisticated market like where we're at, you start looking for unique terpene profiles. It's not all about weight.
Okay, and so let's jump into that.
Sure.
I know as I've hung around more and more home growers that are growing for themselves, they are more interested in the quality over quantity. Who else might be concerned about growing for quality over quantity?
Any home grower that's growing for themselves and their family. Anyone like me that's got 2 tents over here that pulls, new crop every 2 or 3 weeks or every month.
Perpetual harvest. You can afford to go for quality.
Yeah, I mean, things really are changing now. You want it to taste great. I almost forgot about medical. If you think about it, all these different terpenes and cannabinoids, all these different strains give very different medical benefits or medicinal benefits. If there's somebody I'm thinking of like a giant blue dream, all right? Or just some plant like that. This big bud was another one of them. Yeah, they'll give you yield, but they're not going to give you those medicinal benefits that a lot of people want. A lot of people are looking for. If it's something, I'm thinking of like some of the purple strains. Purple Urkel was one that I grew back in the day, and really unique trichome, or really unique terpene profile. Just one of my favorites, but did not grow anywhere close. Probably grew half of what the Blue Dream would grow.
I'm thinking about Jay Maestro. Last time he was up, he was telling me he's got 2 plants that he loves growing. One of them because it just massive buds. But his favorite strain, it takes up 3 times as much space to get the same amount, but it's so good that he's willing to sacrifice that extra space.
He might say it's so good. Don't forget, he's a medical patient. He's a cancer survivor. So good for him might mean that it relaxes him enough to where he can go to sleep, or it takes the pain away or the numbness away. So yes, certain people, or I'm thinking Maestro specifically, he grows things for a specific reason, not just so it goes out on the street.
Okay, so we kind of nailed down the 2 main growing results that people are looking for, yield versus quality. Say I'm growing for yield. You mentioned strain matters in both of them. So if I'm growing for yield, what am I looking for in a strain?
I'd say probably indica dominant, something that is short, fat, doesn't take a lot of time to grow big and tall. But yeah, just something I'm thinking like something that's probably indica dominant, a faster flowering, something that's going to flower in 7 to 8 weeks, as opposed to some of these fancy boutique, sativas, some ties and all that, which have crazy highs to them, beautiful little, tiny, I don't want to say popcorn buds, but a lot smaller buds. Some of those can take 12, 13 weeks to flower. I mean, that's 50% longer flowering time than if you're running a commercial operation,
Yeah, so that cuts into the amount that you can put out each quarter, each year.
Yeah, oh my God, absolutely. Or what you'd have to charge for it. And I don't think too many people want to pay 50% more for smaller nugs.
Gotcha. And then I think you mentioned earlier, there are strains that are just heavier yielders than other strains.
Absolutely. Yeah, the heavy indicas, the Afghanis, things like that are short and fat and stay low to the ground. Those are great commercial producers there. Like I said, Gorilla Glue, if you want to talk about one that's right in the middle, that's a yielder with some crazy flavor. That's got the best of both worlds in it.
Nice. Okay, so let's switch gears over to quality.
Sure.
What am I going to be looking for in a strain if I'm growing for quality?
Man, if you're just growing for quality, you get to pick the strains you like. You don't have to worry about how long they take. You can go for things like aroma, looks. I like the super frosty buds. I don't have to be stuck with some big giant buds if they take 10 or 12 weeks, which is another thing as flower time. I mean, I know some people that go 13, 14 weeks with some weed they're going to bring to the DGC Cup. Because they want to show it off. They want someone to taste it and be like, wow, that is amazing. The flavor is amazing. Or, wow, the medicinal benefit I got was so awesome from it. That's a bit different than look how much I got from this one plant. I do have one more thing if I was determining which strain I wanted to grow for yield or quality. Some of the strains that you grow for quality are finicky. Some of these strains, it's a hobby, so it's fun. There's some like the Blue Dream or the Big Bud or even the Gorilla Glue. They grow strong. You almost can just put them on autopilot and they go. There are some of these others. I'm thinking some of these ties that Banner will hook me up with, man. Just these real exotic, 14 or 15 week flowering strains. Man, they are finicky, but they have flavor like no other. So it's worth it if you're just hanging out with your friends. If you're a true hobbyist, something like that is awesome to get your hands on.
But if I'm growing for profit, I want to grow strains that are less finicky then. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that you want to go for yield at that point. Don't forget, 15 weeks or 14, 15 weeks of a flowering period. The flowering period is when the plant is in decline. It's dying at the end of it. That's a long time to care for a plant as opposed to a 7 or 8 week flowering cycle. It's done and you got big flowers, so it's different.
Okay, let's talk about grow style.
Yeah.
I know that there's different approaches to growing, and so if I'm growing for maximum yield versus maximum quality,
sure.
How would that affect the way that I grow?
If I'm growing for maximum yield, my focus is on getting as much light and as much CO2 on that plant as possible. And then probably because photosynthesis is dependent on temperature, I probably want to keep it a little bit warmer in there. If I'm keeping it in the mid 80s, I'm going to maximize photosynthesis. So that's where I'm going to grow the most amount of plant material in the least amount of time.
All right. What about if I'm growing specifically because I want high quality plants?
If I want high quality, I got to worry about my terpenes. I'm a trichome farmer then. My cannabinoids and my terpenes. So I want to make sure they don't volatilize off. I don't care so much about just blasting them with tons and tons of light, tons of CO2 to build plant material. What I want to do is make sure that I give them enough light and enough CO2 to build themselves. And enough nutrient, of course. But you want to make sure that you're not going so hot that you're going to volatilize all those cannabinoids out of those trichomes. It's a big difference, yeah.
Okay, so temperature, humidity, light, you're going to take different approaches based off of what your outcome that you're looking for.
Yes, I would rather sacrifice a quantity of light to keep the temperature and humidity in an acceptable to keep that down. Just the same way the plant's going to maximize photosynthesis in the mid 80s, it's also going to volatilize off a lot of those terpenes and cannabinoids. So if I'm growing for quality, I'd rather dial down that. I'd rather keep my temperature and humidity in check in that VPD range than I would to dial those lights up and crank them up.
So explosive growth means you're going to probably be sacrificing some of those terpenes, and to get those great terpenes to stay on and not volatilize off, you're probably going to be sacrificing some of your growth.
But yes, that's kind of what we're saying. It's an overgeneralization. If you were to dial your grow in to where you had the right temperature and humidity at a dehumidifier and an air conditioner, then you could blast, and CO2, you could blast them with all the light you want. You're going to get great results. My point is, if I'm looking at a little simple tent and I've got my, it's week 4 or week 5 of flowering, and I can either dial my lights up super high or turn them down and raise the temperatures up, or turn them down a little bit or keep them where they're at and keep the temperature and humidity down to where it should be in that VPD zone. I'd rather, if I'm growing for quality, I'm going to make sure my temperature and humidity are dialed in, and I'd sacrifice light and a little bit of yield. But that's just me. I grow for quality over yield. But what about you? What do you grow for, and how do you adjust accordingly? Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, share this video with another grower you know, and check out the other couple videos YouTube is recommending. I do think you'll dig them.